Welcome back everyone to Genshin Impact. Today we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that happened with the new Abyss. Now, in 4.6 right now that we're in, there's been a lot of discussion, especially now that we've finally hit this version, of a lot of talks in 4.7 with a new type of Abyss, whether that's a new version of the Abyss and a change that's to the current Abyss, or whether or not it's a new Abyss altogether. So we're going to kind of just go through a few things, at least what some speculation and some leaks that we've at least seen, what it is going to be about, as well as other things in general, like how it could work, and possibly just our thoughts on what could actually go along with it. But if you guys do like the content and you do like the video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. And if you do want to go ahead and check out our Discord as well, the link should be in the description as well. Now, on to the video. The first thing that I want to go over and kind of talk about, at least first, is basically what this new Abyss is going to be called, and then some basic stuff, basically just laying a groundwork. So the new Abyss is going to be called Fantasy Realm Epic Poem. Now, for the first season, and this is going to be in seasons, and Rift, I believe, later is going to go a little bit more deeper in depth into this. But for the first season, only characters with the elements of Pyro, Electro, and Anemo, so only those three elements, are allowed to participate in it. Now, there are some exceptions in a minute as well to that, but at least the opening characters that you can use in Season 1 are Sayu, Beidou, Wanderer, Chevreuse, Arlecchino, and in 4.7 when she drops, Chloron. Now here as well, entry to this specific Abyss is going to require using all of these characters if you have them. And if you don't have them, trial versions are available if you don't own them. So if it doesn't lock you from being able to do it if you don't have every single character. Note that also as well, all opening characters must be present when you're doing this, and so missing even one of these characters that I just mentioned, if you don't have Sayu or Beidou in your choice selection of the characters, is not going to allow you entry to it. Moreover as well, opening characters will receive special buffs in the Fantasy Realm Epic Poem, and the open world will increase as well, so basically you're going to increase your attack and defense if you have these characters. They'll kind of give you a special buff for these 6. Alongside of that, we have some special guest characters, Baizhu, Sijuin, Alhaitham, and Risley. Sijuin also dropping in 4.7. Now, all of these characters have elements that are not a part of the 3 that were previously mentioned, which means that they are these special guest characters, and so they are basically kind of once again the exceptions that I was talking about earlier. These are not subject, like I was talking about, to those elemental restrictions in Season 1. Now, seasons are going to change on what elements are allowed, as well as the special guest characters and the opening characters. So we'll kind of see some changes in the future as well, so it won't just be this one thing over and over again. There will be no trial versions of these characters, though, so if you don't own a certain character for these special guest characters, you can't use them, but there's no special buffs that come alongside of using these characters besides just the characters themselves. Now, how the actual Abyss kind of somewhat works at first is before entering, you must assemble your party, your opening characters, plus a reserve team. So you basically have 2 teams. You have your opening team, and then you have your reserve team. And there are 3 levels of difficulty. To go into level 1, you are required to have 10 characters, so your 6 opening characters and 4 reserve characters. And the only change for level 2 and level 3 is the increase in reserve characters. So in level 2, it requires 14 characters, 6 of those are being your opening characters, and then 8 characters being reserve. And then level 3, it requires 18 characters, with 6 of those being opening characters and 12 being reserve characters for that team. Now, reserve teams need 4, 8, or 12, depending on which level you're in, of characters, which can only include characters within those season's elements that I was just talking about. So Season 1 would be those 3 elements I mentioned earlier, except for those special guest characters that were mentioned just afterwards. Moreover, reserve team members can only be used in challenges after unlocking specific events as well, randomly while you're basically within that reserve pool. So there'll probably be some special ideas and abilities that will kind of unlock as either you go through the different levels or as kind of things move around and switch around. Looking at all of this though, there's kind of a lot going on here, but in general, I think it's a good, interesting way. I really do. I think I like the idea of where they're going with this. I think this could turn a good way, this could turn a bad way, and even right now, I don't think it's necessarily a terrible idea. But Rift, what are your thoughts on at least the basic classic example right here that we're given?
So yeah, honestly, for me personally, just listening to you talk about all that was honestly my first time hearing a lot about it. That just so happened to be how it is, right? My initial thought on this is, like you said, it's pretty good. I think it would be a good change because it's gonna be more rewards, but just a lot more opportunities to use some characters. And I actually do really like the idea of the restriction, if you will, of only being able to use certain element characters. I think it's gonna add some novelty and a little bit of difficulty as well to the game in a sense, because you have to use these characters. And for new players, I think it's gonna be great because you are provided with trial characters if you don't have the character at all. So like a lot of new players probably won't have Chevrus unless she finally gets her run in 4.7, you know, and there's a possibility there. But like new players aren't gonna have her because she's only had the one banner a while back, and so they'll be provided with a trial Chevrus. And so I think that's good because that doesn't only give them entry to it, and it's completely fair, right? But it also kind of helps new players understand and get to play with characters they don't have. And I've said this before, that's the reason I like combat events that have trial characters. And I know that's just a personal thing, but I know, and I remember that when I was a new player, it was just super exhilarating to play the trial events because I was getting to play with a lot of 5-star characters and 4-star characters that I did not have, and it was just so fun, and it helped me understand how the characters worked a lot faster, and kind of also helped me understand just for down the road who I'd actually want to wish for later on. So I think that'd be very cool, and my opinion on that is just like, I'm all for it, and I can't wait to see any other nuances they might add or change with this new Abyss. But some things I personally was able to find and look up. So recent leaks have also suggested that Genshin is actually going to be upgrading the rewards for the current Abyss. Or it could be vice versa. So the current Abyss gives us 600 Primo Gems every 2 weeks, right? Some people have said, okay, that's going to stay the same, and the new Abyss is going to give us the same or a little bit more, like 800, right? So the total you'll get is 1200. Now, on the flip side, what I've heard and seen is that they're going to upgrade the current Abyss to 800 Primo Gems, but in doing so, they're actually going to change the schedule. Instead of bi-weekly current Abyss, it's going to be monthly. So overall, it's less Primo Gems from the current Abyss, but they're still adding the new one. So the current Abyss kind of, in a sense, if you want to, I guess, say it got debuffed, the rewards did, but there's the new Abyss. So you're still getting 1200 Primo Gems overall when combining both of the two. And the great thing is that the new one is very new player friendly, whereas the current one, you do have to build up your characters and use what you actually have on your account. That's not changing. So I think that's pretty interesting. Looking at either way you look at it, you're getting 800 and 600, 1200 Primo Gems every month essentially, because the new schedule, if that's changed to monthly on the current Abyss, they're planning to do that on the new Abyss as well. That's going to be a monthly rotation. Now, that is one thing I didn't like to hear about that, because I already don't like the fact that the current Abyss, what we've been seeing for the past year at least, is when they update the new Abyss, it's the same enemies all over again, and you just get the rewards. It's just a rewards refresh for 3 resets, and then they'll actually change the enemies. So maybe my hope, though, is that with this, if they're changing it to a monthly reset, is that every monthly reset, it would be different enemies. Because then, in that scenario, we are getting different types of enemies and lineups faster, because it's 4 weeks as opposed to 6 weeks of the same enemy fights that we have right now. So I think that would be a good thing, but it does make me a little nervous on the scheduling thing, and you know, that could totally change. It could not happen. It could just stay to the bi-weekly thing, but it is definitely interesting to point out, because that could really be a big change for the end game and the content in general. So going back to the trial characters in the new Abyss, the question obviously is, how are these trial characters going to be? And honestly, at first thought, I'm just thinking they're going to be very similar to the trial character builds that we see for the actual trials we do have when we get to try out new characters, right? And so a lot of the times they'll just leave them at level 80 weapon. The 5-stars usually do have their signature, no constellation, something like that, and they're, you know, the 5-stars will be on their proposed set. But I'm thinking, like, for example, Chevrus, they'll probably just slap her on Noblesse, which isn't bad, but my point is that sometimes the characters won't actually be on their best in slot mathematically, 4-piece set. So it's looking like that for right now. They'll be level 80 once again with their talents at like level 8, and level 8. C0, R0, nothing crazy. And that specifically, I think, is for level 3 difficulty from what I've been hearing. So that I don't really see why it should be different from level 1 and 2 anyways, though. Maybe it's because level 1 and level 2 actually are locked at a different level, like level 60 characters fighting level 60 enemies, and then it goes up. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on everything I've just talked about, Vixen?
I don't know. There's a few things that are kind of going around with that. I do like the idea a lot about how that kind of changes. Personally, I think I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to change the level of the characters. Just like how we can take, a level 90 character into a lower level of the Abyss right now, I don't think they're going to necessarily lock anything for the future for us. Even with trial characters as well, exactly. I think it'll just be easier for them in general to just keep all the characters just at the same level and doing the same thing with the same everything instead of having to change things around. But I do think that a lot of that was interesting. The biggest thing I think is I'm one of those people, when we were talking about this actually beforehand, I know that my thought was that they'll increase at least they'll keep the 600 primos basically for the current Abyss if there's going to be 2 different versions of this, of the Abyss in 4.7. The version we have now and then obviously this new version. And then the new version is going to have 800 primos, and the old version, or the version we have right now, is 600. Keep it the same. Now, the reason I say that is because there are currently 4 floors right now, and obviously you get 150 for each time you clear. And so obviously that comes out to 600. It's easy to just not change what's already there. Whereas in the future, when we have 8 floors that are supposedly coming in this new Abyss, it'll be easier to just give 100 to each floor instead of trying to do, I believe the math on that is 75 to get to 600, and then bringing the 800 over to the new Abyss, which then you just have to increase. It's more or less, I think, just more work, more than anything else, just personally. But I do think that a lot of the stuff that's coming around is very interesting. It's got a lot of cool, interesting takes. I think there could be a little bit of an issue with how character or players are kind of doing endgame a little too soon. Maybe the level 1 and level 2 is a little bit almost too easy because you're given trial characters, and the whole point of endgame is to kind of reward the people that are late game for what they're doing. For instance, in other games, that's kind of what you tend to see, is that even though there are, rewards that are locked behind it, they are, there for a reason because the bigger players are there, which is why I believe there's going to be 2 different Abysses. Because even as a lower level player, you can still grab the primos from this current Abyss, whereas this new one, it seems like you can still grab stuff from the lower level, the level 1, but level 2 and level 3 are probably going to take not only just good characters, but I think more importantly, it's going to take a bigger roster. So veterans that have been here for a while that are going to be able to do this. So those are just kind of my thoughts, at least on what this Abyss could be, what it's going to actually bring across.
Yeah, and to the point of endgame content, it wouldn't make sense to, like, it's endgame, right? If it's endgame, it should not be possible in your first week of playing. Even though something like what we're looking at here with the new Abyss, that very first part of it, the level 1 or whatever, because of all the trial character supplementation, it can be doable very, very early on in the game. So I think it makes sense that they do have those harder levels, because then it's not endgame. There has to be that higher reward for what's actually endgame. I don't care how much skill you have on your first day of playing any game. The endgame content in the game, especially if it's a level-based system type of game, like Genshin Impact, right? It's a grindy type game. You have to just give it time. You can't play for 18 hours a day and expect to already be the best. You were gated by certain things. And Genshin's example it's the resin system. We just simply can't. So for there to still be the end game in like the current Abyss and not change how that is, like you have to use what's on your account. I think that's good because that's end game. If you make it doable for the new people, it's not end game, right? And it's a lot easier too.
Well, that's everything we have for this video. If you do, once again, please go ahead and like and subscribe if you did like the content. And as well, once again, we do have a Discord, and the link should be down in the description as well. That's kind of everything we have for this video, but in the future, we are looking to look over some Chloran stuff, as well as Sijuan, as well as there's been a lot of stuff there as well. And also, as well as I am currently running through getting my Arlecchino up so that we can do a build guide on her and just kind of what that entails in general. So go ahead and look out for those videos in the future. But that's everything we have for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.